Update. Am I 26 female overreacting about how my parents, 50s male/female, treated my aunt, 50s female? Original post. Growing up, I was told I had a maternal aunt, but that she was too selfish to have time for her family, and that was why I never met her. My parents would badmouth her every opportunity they got, but I never really got an answer about what happened. I was at a family function 2 years ago on my own while my parents were out of the country. My parents will not attend events my aunt will be at, and being that she's child-free, my family was always given preference because of me. When I got to meet her, I was really struck by her. I knew I looked like her, but our personalities are very similar. We immediately got along, and we exchanged numbers. I didn't tell my parents I was talking to her because it wasn't their business and I'm an adult. As we got closer, I found out she was married before her current husband and he passed away after a hard fight with cancer. She's been helping me with career path after graduate school, has great connections that have been absolutely amazing. My aunt wouldn't tell me what happened. She told me that it was between her and my parents, and that it didn't need to involve me. One night I went over to dinner and we were talking about my education. When I said my dad's parents paid for my college, she seemed surprised, but said nothing. Dinner wasn't awkward and nothing seemed to be wrong. My aunt said she was tired after dinner and asked her husband to drive me home. I had a few glasses of wine. On the car ride, he told me that I was an adult and deserved to know the truth about what happened. And this is a first-hand account because he was there. He was my aunt's late husband's best friend and best man. And before anyone comments, they both say her late husband told them that it would happen after he passed and they had his blessing. My parents disowned my aunt because she had a child-free wedding and wouldn't make an exception for me, but literally offered to pay for an on-site childcare. But because I couldn't be there, they refused and belittled my aunt. They cut her off entirely, and I can honestly see them being this petty. They had a hard time having me. This is where it gets even worse. My maternal grandparents have been gone 10 years. They both died in an accident. When her husband was dying of cancer, my aunt reached out to my mom, only for my mom to ask her, "Well, he was the only family you needed at your wedding, wasn't he?" and hung up on her. The biggest thing? She sent my parents the money to pay for my college and grad school, and they didn't tell me. When he dropped me off, I immediately called them and they admitted that it was true, but defended their position, saying that I should have been invited. I told them both they were horrible people to leave her alone for so long and never to contact me again. They have been blowing up my phone and showing up uninvited to my house. They are now harassing my aunt, who is almost inconsolable. I texted them to tell them it wasn't endearing their position to me, but they didn't stop until she blocked them both. I don't know what else to do now. Did I overreact? My aunt is crushed. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Wow, your parents are a piece of work. They disown her over a petty thing like a child-free wedding, and yet accept her money for your college education? They have a lot of apologizing to do. You did not overreact. If you haven't already, contact your aunt to tell her she has nothing to be sorry about, and that you want to keep your relationship with her and properly thank her for your education. For your parents, tell them very clearly, "Until I get a full apology from you lying about my education, we won't be speaking anytime soon." Sorry your parents robbed you of a loving aunt while you were growing up. Sorry you have such petty, toxic parents. Your parents define hypocrisy by taking your aunt's money while trash-talking your aunt. They are petty and hold a grudge. But that is who I would be, so I don't fault them personally. I may not disown, but I'd definitely distance. Although taking her money not speaking was a prick move. Only thing they did I disagree with is that they should have told you. I'd have taken it, but definitely told you where it came from. I'm genuinely surprised that you will be angry over your sister offering to cover babysitting for one day while you attend her wedding. And I do understand that they were more attached to the baby since they had problem having children and wanted to have her with them 24/7. May I ask, is this something you will actually be distancing yourself from your own sister over? I'm really curious. And for the update. My original post got 0 attention, but I'm updating anyway because I'm so happy due to some news I received today. It didn't get any better, unfortunately. I got all contact with my parents after they showed up to my place, demanding that I speak to them, and they refused to apologize for what they did. They said she turned her back on family, and I asked them how. By not wanting a toddler that would be bored out of her mind at a wedding ceremony? They looked like I slapped them. And I kept repeating that I've had been bored as heck. I've seen some videos and it was a typical wedding, as lovely as it was. And it was literally only a few hours. They couldn't bear to part with me for a few hours. I said the only people I saw abandoning family here were them, especially when she called them as her husband was dying of terminal cancer, and they shunned her at her lowest. I said even after that she still sent money for my college, and they couldn't even be decent people and be honest about that either. I told them I wanted nothing to do with them, and that they could consider themselves the childless couple, while she gained what would be the equivalent of an adult daughter, and then slammed the door in their faces. I eventually had to threaten them with the police when they wouldn't leave. I spent Thanksgiving with my aunt and her friends, who she has said are her family. They've been friends since high school and are just as warm as my aunt is. Today she called me. My aunt has owned her own small business for the past 15 years, and it is doing well. She told me that a person who was in a position in my field is retiring next year, and she would like me to consider the position. She said it is merit based on my work. She stressed there is no expectations, but if I come aboard, it would be unfair of her not to say that she'd want me to eventually take over the company, instead of selling it like she planned in the future. I accepted. It will be starting my new position in the new year so I can learn the accounts from the person in the position. Your head music be spinning, and you got a year older in this time. So I think your stance on your parents' behavior is pretty much bang on. They have shunned their relative, cut her off and been petty, and then lied to you about it. The question I have is, what do you want for your relationship with them in the future? Just a month. My birthday was a week after my first post. I don't want a relationship with them in the future at this point. I can't even fathom it right now. I can't imagine doing what they did to her, while my mom continues to claim that she loved her sister. She says she loves me, but what happens if I do something she doesn't like? I can understand why you'd be wary of having contact with them. But you have just done something they don't like, and the consequences have not been great for you so far. How was your relationship with them before all this came out? What does your aunt say about it all? Does she think you should have a relationship with them? Our relationship was mostly good, but looking back, it was only good when I obeyed. Anytime I didn't, it was a nuclear meltdown situation that only reinforced my obedience. One time, my dad lost his mind because I didn't want to wear a winter jacket because it was too warm, and he ended up not speaking to me for 3 days. My aunt tells me that she supports me, but she doesn't want me to make any rash decisions as they are still my parents and love me deeply. She doesn't push one way or the other. She just listens. You are not overreacting. My dad does the same thing. I'm realizing my parents are honestly toxic people. If you don't fit their ideals, they will bully and mock you. I realized at Thanksgiving that my aunt was surrounded by warm, loving people, and my parents were mostly alone with no friends when I was growing up. I wanted to be surrounded by warm, loving people. Next story. My brother is in jail because of me. I feel guilty and confused. My parents can't stop blaming me and I fear they might be right. Last year was exhausting and terrible. It's getting much worse. I'm just too tired and stressed, too disgusted and guilty and happy all at once. Last year, I found out my brother was in possession of adult materials involving children. When my 28 female husband 31 male was installing a WFH software in my brother's computer, this was done behind my back. He found the material and told me. My brother 37 male is the personification of the term loser. An awful piece of garbage who has no purpose in life, and not a shred of love for anyone. At 37, he still lives at home with my pathetic parents who enable him. This sad excuse of a man mistreated and traumatized me repeatedly and ruined my childhood. But I didn't think twice about drawing the line when kids have been victimized for his pleasure. I was absolutely furious with my husband for contacting him, but he promised he'd handle it himself. My husband and I went to the police, who then contacted the FBI to conduct wider investigation. They raided my family's home and caught my brother. They confiscated his devices and found the evidence they needed. Everything was set for conviction. Then 4 months ago, he, along with other accomplices, was sentenced to 5 years in jail. The case was severe. Others received 10-year sentences. I was euphoric. I celebrated with my husband and was just ready to leave it behind at that. But then my parents got back to harassing and shaming me. Apparently his health in jail is bad, so they're blaming me for it. They are telling me I'm the bad person here as opposed to their criminal pedo son. My manipulative mom has a knack for faking tears, such that I ended up feeling sad and guilty because of her. They're even going after my husband and accusing him of staging it. My husband filed a restraining order, so we're reasonably safe. We're starting therapy too because I'm just wrecked from the inside. I overthink it sometimes. If he dies in jail, it'll be my fault, right? He was asking my husband for help because allegedly he was ready to start a new life. But I just can't think of his horrible crime without crying and vomiting. Did I do the right thing? Now for the top comments. He's in jail for his own actions. You just followed the law and reported him. If anything happens, it's his own fault. I agree, you did the right thing. Don't let them guilt trip you into thinking otherwise. Thanks to you, he can't hurt anyone else. If anything, you should be proud. I have faith that you'll pull through. It takes a lot of courage to call out your family even if he is a criminal. I wish you and your husband all the best. My brother is in jail because he was in possession of adult materials involving children. Fix your title. He is not in jail because of you. You did the right thing. You shouldn't fear that your parents are right. They are wrong, and you should be proud. Not only did you put a criminal in jail, now you can cut your parents out of your life too. Clearly, they're not worth having in your life if they enable this man and blame you for putting him away. Why are you worried he will die in jail? Frankly, it's only 5 years, and he needs it. I may be a stranger, but I'm proud of you. I support your choice to go to therapy to help you get through all your feelings, and hopefully it will help you accept that what you've done is definitely the right thing. Thank you for your support. I really needed that. If he dies in jail, it will be because he's a freaking criminal, and not because you turned him in. You did the right thing. He did not. Hi, he won't die there. They have doctors and medical professionals there too. But in the wider scheme of things, think about this. What will bring you long-term peace? If I was in your situation, I wouldn't ever talk to my parents again. But starting therapy is a great step, and I really think you will feel supported. Yes, you did the right thing. What your brother chose was vile and disgusting. And in your place, I also couldn't have lived with myself if I didn't do anything to protect kids. Now for the last story. My brother is burning down all his bridges, and his ego won't let him see how bad it's getting. So my female 24 brother, male 41, is the most successful member of my family, financially at least. He has a house, a job that pays tons, and 3 beautiful kids. But he is slowly destroying every part of his life he can't control. My brother is very high-strung and tends to try and control everything and everyone in a very clinical way. He asked me for a life plan at 13 and told me to never pursue the arts because I wouldn't make enough money at 9. If he doesn't get his way or some says something out of place, he will yell and get very aggressive. He has always been like this since I can remember her. He also holds a grudge against our mom seemingly for being the victim of mistreatment by our father, who was his idol. I didn't talk to him for 2 years because of this. Naturally, me and my mother's relationship with him is strained, but his behavior and obsession with work to the exclusion of all else, no hobbies other than the gym, broke down his marriage. She didn't have the killer instinct he needed in a partner. After about a year living maybe an hour away from her and his kids, he moved back closer. He moved across the road from her. It still feels like he's trying to control her and is getting increasingly aggressive with our mother when she tries to reach out to help him. He got contact with her for 2 weeks when she told him we wouldn't come for Christmas, but we could 2 days later. I'm watching him try to control complex human beings like robots and freaking out when he can't. I see this man who claims to be an intellectual fail to understand simple emotional maturity because he acts like any slight to his ego is a war crime. Now his ex is considering moving halfway across the country with the kids, and I don't blame her. I feel like he's gonna work himself to death and burn all his relationships down trying to control everyone to his interests. Any perspective on this? You cannot change him. He's a grown man and he'll suffer the consequences of his actions. You can decide that you want him out of your life and cut him off. There's this little phrase in my language that I think applies well here that roughly translates to let him run into the knife, slash against the wall by himself. He's an adult. He's not open to any communication. Actually, he becomes quite hostile. He's hating on an abused victim, which is not very surprising regarding he's technically an abuser himself. And now he even shows signs of potential stalking. What Opie can do? Distance herself. Live her own life. Don't let him drag you down, girl. You might have been related, but he's no family you can save. Furthermore, Opie's mother should do the same, even if it might hurt knowing it's technically her child. And the ex should prep for calling the police on him, though I think she already does with the whole moving aspect. Any perspective on this? Yes, unless your brother happens to get a visit from the ghost of Christmas past during the night, Don't hold your breath waiting for him to suddenly realize what a miserable a-hole he is. This. He seems like he has main character syndrome, and that's not usually something fixable. Straight up, that's just embedded into their personality. I would be very wary of this man. He's an abuser. Control is what mistreatment is all about. He's not getting the control he wants, so he's escalating. The fact he can't see this means he has the potential to take his awful nature into deadly territory. Unless he actually gets professional help dealing with his desire for control, you should seriously not ever be around him. Your mom, and his ex. I would assume this has to do with how your father was, since you say he idolized him. This is a scary one as you described him, Opie. Really take this seriously. This is going to get worse. Agreed. I'd actually leave him alone, and reach out to his ex to find out what you can do to help her and the kids get away from him. I can't even imagine the damage he is doing to his children, let alone his ex.